my name is Sarah. Welcome to the It is a Sarah podcast. Today it is Monday, February 24, 2025, and in this episode I want to share my handwerk perikelen, that's a Dutch word for crafty adventures, from this week with you. I'm coming to you from the Netherlands, so excuse my Dutchy English. I love to knit, I love to crochet, and I love to talk, so that's the perfect combination for making this podcast. I make my episodes in Dutch and in English, so be sure you pick the right one. Okay, welcome on this rainy Monday. I don't know if you can hear it, but it's the perfect weather for a nitty chat. I have some finished objects I want to share all about with you today. I have a third one, but that's still drying, so that will come later. But let me start with what I'm wearing, because I'm very happy with my newest garment, although it is not perfect, and I want to share all the details about it with you now. This is my Nordic Bloom Calidez Vest. It is actually a combination of two patterns, the Nordic Bloom from Caitlin Hunter and the Calidez Vest from Jen Joyce Design. So let's start at the beginning. Last year I saw a picture on Instagram from the Nordic Bloom vest and I immediately fell in love with it. And I searched for it, where can I get this one? And I discovered it was part of the Nordic Knits, a magazine from Line, filled with all the Nordic inspired or Nordic Scandinavian designers, some with Scandinavian roots, Nordic roots, and some who actually live or are coming from the Scandinavian countries. Is it only Scandinavia, or is it also Nordic on other continents? I don't know. I think Scandinavian, but I'm not sure. Line is from Finland, so I immediately fell in love with this pattern from Caitlin Hunter. She picked a small part from Scandinavian color work and she put it on a bigger scale. So it's the flower, and I really loved it. There are actually two patterns in this magazine. You have the, here it is, you have the Nordic Bloom vest without sleeves and the Nordic Bloom cardigan with sleeves. And I really loved it. So I ordered the magazine at a Dutch yarn shop, and then nothing happened because I didn't have the time to knit it. But I remember at the Knit to Prill to festival I organized last year in November, some people were wearing the Nordic Bloom, and yeah, it confirmed my first love, of my love at first sight. It was really lovely on the ladies, so I definitely wanted to make one too. I actually had the right yarn in stash. It is designed for a bulky weight yarn, Rauma Vams. And Rauma Vams is quite a light thread. This is 50 gram, it's 83 meter, and this is in my stash for quite some years. I did buy it to re-knit my favorite thrifted cardigan. It never happened. So much is not happening in my knitting life. So I thought, okay, I can use the yarn for the Nordic Bloom, and I had several color combinations. I could make the long sleeved version with two colors or only the vest version with two colors, but something bothered me, and that was the dropped shoulder no sleeve version. I don't really love the shape of that. I accidentally knitted a summer version of the current cardigan with the same construction. It's also drop shoulder, and I didn't want to knit the sleeves anymore. I was struggling with the yarn, and it's not interesting, but I thought, okay, let's add some ribbing immediately, and I have a sleeveless cardigan. But because of the dropped shoulder, it is over the shoulder, and it's looking as if you have a sleeve, but it's not really a sleeve, it's just part of the shoulder construction. You can see it right here. And I can imagine some people love the look of it, but I don't love the look of it. I don't know why. It's just my personal taste, I guess. So I was thinking about the long sleeve version, but then there was something else I realized. I didn't want to use that yarn because I still wanted to make that replica of my thrifted cardigan. And then I realized I have a lot of lead lopi in my yarn, so if I could make a version in lead lopi yarn, which is a little bit thinner, it's a worsted weight instead of a bulky weight, then it was okay. So I decided to do that, and that reminded me of another pattern in my library. I never knitted. It was there all the time. This is the Calidez Vest by Jen Joyce Design. It is a black and white print, so the original photo is more attractive. Those two garments are knitted in Alafos Lopi, and they are on my list since I saw them. But I never made them, and one of the reasons is that the pattern was a little bit too overwhelming for me, and that's not a point of the pattern, that's a point of me, how my brain works. This is actually more of a recipe. You can knit these garments, two options, in all the yarn weights, all the different yarn weights. There are all the options for all the gauges. But I'm not a gauge person. I just cast on and knit away, and most of the time it works. But checking my gauge and then the description which to follow, it was so overwhelming. I'm not a pattern reader, I'm a doer. I really learned by knitting and crocheting that I learn by doing. When I try to understand something before I do it with my hands, there will be an error. So there was an error with this pattern. So I was ignoring it. I still wanted it, but it was not happening. And now I thought, let's combine it. But where to start? Both are bottom-up patterns. So you start at the bottom and then you go further. So I checked, I should have, my size from the Nordic Bloom was size 2. And then I thought, how many stitches do I need for size 1? Because I needed to check the chart, how many chart repeats and how I could translate it to thinner yarn. And then when I saw the amount of stitches, I thought, that's exactly 1 stitch away, exactly the amount of stitches I needed for my corn cardigan. And I knitted a coffee bean corn cardigan, my own modification, but I used exact the same stitch amount as Rebecca Clow in her patterns. And that was in lead lopi yarn. And I thought the fit was perfect, and yeah, the measurements were perfect, so I can use size 1 from the Nordic Bloom. I can just follow the under part of the pattern for that. And then I checked in my Calidez recipe the same amount of stitches, and then I came out of size 8, I guess. I still didn't have any idea how the pattern worked, but I just knew that I just needed to follow size 8. So in the beginning I could follow the Nordic Bloom pattern, the ribbing, you knit back and forth, and then you add some stick stitches and you start knitting in the round for the color work, and that was all Nordic Bloom pattern. And after finishing the chart, the color work, I switched to the Calidez pattern and I followed that pattern. I made a few mistakes, but I learned by doing, so that was part of the learning process. Let me start with the first mistake. After finishing one front piece, I realized I did knit a V-shaped neckline, but I decided I wanted a round neckline. And while I was knitting, no alarm bells were ringing, but the round neckline is a modification. So it was at the end of the pattern, the modification. And I just followed the pattern. Size 8, size 8. Don't get distracted by all the numbers, just follow size 8. And suddenly I had a V-shaped neckline. And I love V-shaped necklines. So there was not a moment I thought to rip out and do it again. I just thought then it will have a V-shaped neckline. And then the other thing I made, a mistake. Yeah, it was actually a mistake. The biggest reason why I fell in love with the Calidez Vest was the the shaping, yeah, I don't know if it's really visible on this part, but it was not really white. The thing I didn't like at the original Nordic Bloom, that's the shoulder, the draped shoulder, the dropped shoulder, there was more shaping in the Calidez. But when I finished my complete garment and I put it on, I thought, it is still quite white. And then I read the introduction of the pattern. I know, you should start with it. I do it after finishing my garments. And in the introduction, the designer explains that there are options to modify the shaping for a more narrow look, and they are at the end of the pattern. So the Calidez vest is designed as a kind of a body warmer, an over layer, an outside layer, an outdoor layer, and that's more wider and warmer. And when you want a more shaped version, you should follow those extra instructions, and I didn't. I know where to find them now. I do understand the pattern now. I can knit this garment in all the gauges, in all the yarns. I know it right now. So I was, for a few seconds, I was a little disappointed. But then I realized when I did my first fit, I was wearing my Lowrider vest. It's also a pattern by Clow, and it's a vest with some wider shoulder straps. And I realized that when my Calidez vest would be more narrow, then I couldn't wear it over the Lowrider vest because it would disappear. No, it would appear here and it wouldn't look nice. And now I could wear it, I could combine those, and I thought it's okay. So the disappointment was only for a really short time. I must confess, this is the third day in a row I am wearing it, and now this is happening. I don't like that. I think apart from the shoulder shaping, the armhole shaping I didn't do, there's another thing I could have done better. When I checked my gauge afterwards, I know you should have do that before you start. I do it afterwards. I have this gauge ruler with my name. It was a gift from a Belgian knitter. Can you see it? Jolina. I checked my gauge, and I let's see, it is in my knitting book. I discovered my color work is 17 stitches and 19 rows, and my stockinette part is 16 stitches and 21 rows. So this is on a looser gauge. I did knit this on 5mm needles and this on 4.5. 4mm needles for this part would have been better. So lucky me, I already casted on a second one. A really lovely one, different color, same yarn. Oh, I didn't tell about the yarn. I will do that in a minute. Same yarn, other color work, and I can redo all my mistakes in the right way. So I think it will work out pretty good. And still, yeah, it's not a big problem. I made the mistakes. I really learned by knitting, that I learned from doing it, that I learned from making mistakes, and this was such a quick knit, and I really want to have several of those garments in my wardrobe because they are perfect woolly layers for spring, which is coming. We had quite some warmer days this weekend, and then it was definitely too warm for a sweater or a cardigan, and just a sleeveless garment is perfect, and also a perfect throw over. So it's really lovely, and I'm really having fun knitting all the things. So yeah, I am, yeah, a few years ago I would have been really disappointed, and my Miss Perfect, she would have been angry and very judging about me making those mistakes. But I don't know, I think she's on a holiday. I have no idea where she is because I don't hear her. So so that's pretty good. The yarn I used, I did choose Let Lopi, as I said, and I was searching through my big box filled with all the random Let Lopi yarn balls, and I chose as a main color the color Murky. It's a bit of a grayish brown, and it was actually my plan to combine it with black, so you had quite some hard contrast, black and brown. I think I shared this before. But then I found my chocolate Let Lopi, and I realized I want that as a contrast color, and I was a little bit worried about the low contrast. Wouldn't it be too low? But I asked myself, if it really doesn't work, is it okay to frog and start over again with the black or another harder contrast color? I thought, okay, that's okay if necessary. And then I was knitting and it was really looking as a low contrast, and I was a little bit worried. And then I remembered that you can make a black and white picture with your phone, and I did do that, and I was actually surprised because the contrast on the big black and white picture was looking much better than in reality. So I calmed down and I thought it will be okay, and now I'm really happy with the low contrast. I think it will really be lovely in a harder contrast too, but this is, yeah, I don't know, I really love it. Another thing, I didn't add button bands. Well, let me start with the steek. This garment is steeked. As I said, you cast on steek stitches after the ribbing, and then you knit the color work in the round. It is so easy. And when you finish the color work chart, you bind off your steek stitches and you finish the left front part and the right front part and the back, and you join it all together. And then you have to finish the steek. I always do it with my sewing machine as for the reinforcement, and I filmed my sticking process, and I explained what I do and why I do it. I always love to finish my sticks with a little facing, and this was actually, I never stick the garment with only a small part stick. Stitches. Normally I have round yoke cardigans and they are sticked from the bottom to the top, but now it was only a small part, so it was a little bit new. But I filmed the whole process and I explained it in one of my HeartJumping Friday videos from last Friday actually. HeartJumping Friday is my membership I offer on YouTube. It's a paid membership, and you can find all the information about that membership down below in the show notes. You get an extra video every Friday. Yeah, a little bit behind the scenes, explaining something when I think I can explain something, showing you all the things, and you can answer all the questions about my knitting projects, about your own knitting or crochet projects, or all the kinds of questions. They are all happening in the HeartJumping Friday videos, and I am really having fun making those videos, and a lot of people are having fun watching those, so thank you if you are a member of the membership part, and if you are not, you are more than welcome. Check the information down below. If you have a question, please send me an email and I will help you. And if you are not interested in a membership, that's also fine, of course. I think there are a lot of clever tutorials, sticking tutorials you can find on the internet, on YouTube and on other places on the internet. Yeah, so, but don't be afraid of sticking. I was really afraid of sticking, but it's such a good technique. It makes your color work knitting so much easier. And I still have some not helping thoughts about sticking. I never sticked for armholes and the neck shaping, neckline. So my plan is to cast on a cardigan in which that all is happening this week, to tackle those not helping thoughts. Because I know sticking is not hard, I know sticking is not difficult, but in some way my brain yeah, still thinks that armholes are difficult, and I know that's not true, but I am thinking it is, yeah, scary and difficult, so we need to change that. So I will cast on a new project to practice that this week. Okay, yeah, this was all about my Nordic Bloom Calidez Vest. I recommend both patterns, I guess. I only followed the Nordic Bloom until here. And the Calidez Vest, again, My struggle with the pattern is not because of the pattern, it's because of my brain, how it works. But now I get it. It's really a lovely pattern. You can make it in fingering weight, sport weight, DK weight, worsted weight, bulky, Aran weight, bulky weight, or other way around, I don't know. And I think also in children's sizes to big men sizes. I don't know, there's quite a wide range, so it's really a beautiful pattern slash recipe to have in your library. So I absolutely recommend that too. And it's definitely not my last. As I said, the second one is on the needles, and I hope to show it to you very soon. Another finished object is my light bright sweater, and I want to share all about that one in a minute, because I have to work on my pages in my knitting book, and I have to update my Ravelry page. It's not complete yet, so I can share all the details with you. I didn't wear the sweater. I wanted to wear it yesterday, but it was too warm, and I will start wearing it soon. I will tell you all about it. I will put it on and share all the details about my light bright. See you in a minute. No, not in a minute. See you in an hour, I guess. Time to tell you all about my second finished object. This is my light bright sweater. It's a design by Wool and Pine, and the reason why I immediately fallen in love with this pattern and bought this pattern the moment I saw it was because of the construction. This is a raglan with a scoop neckline, and that was exactly what I was manifesting. I needed that in my life. I love the raglan construction. I love the look of it, and I love knitting it. Just knitting and put your stitches for the sleeves on hold when you are at this point, and then knitting away and pick up the stitches. And I didn't knit a lot of raglan constructions for myself because there is a problem with it. For example, this one. This is the Tolsta tee by Rebecca Clow, the Creabea knitter, and I just picked it out of my box filled with summer garments, so there is a fold in it. I love this garment, the look of it, I think. It is knitted on quite a loose gauge, and for a relaxed knitter as I am, garments knitted on a loose gauge are a little bit confusing because the gauge which is loose is meant to be, but I am struggling with loose gauge always, so I try to avoid that as much as possible, and the looser the gauge, the more my stitches will dance. And I love dancing, but not really dancing knitting stitches. I want them strict and straight. No dancing allowed. So So that's a little bit, but that has nothing to do with my main problem with this raglan construction. My main problem is the neckline. When you knit a raglan construction, most of the time you cast on stitches, you knit the neckband, and then you make some short rows and you place your markers for the raglan and you do it all together. And when you have some short rows, you just knit the raglan stitches as described in the pattern. I even think I added 1 or 2 short rows more in this pattern, I'm not sure, to create a little bit of a lower neckline, a little bit more fabric in the back and a lower neckline at the front. I thought that would solve my neckline problems. No, it doesn't. I know now, but I did try. So every time I wear this garment, I feel a bit, this. And yeah, although I love the color, I love the look, I love the embroidery, the woolly tattoo on it, it is not one of my favorites. And I think I knitted that one 2 years ago. 2 or 3? 2, I guess. In the same year, I crocheted a garment with a scoop neckline. I didn't know you call it a scoop neckline, but this neckline is what I need in my life. This is also a raglan construction. This is a crochet pattern, a 100% crochet, although I replaced the crochet ribbing for a knitted ribbing. This is the Lowrider jumper. It's a pattern by Claudine Powell, also known as the Iron Lamp, or not the, just Iron Lamp. And her construction was different. You have the same raglan construction. Can you see the raglan line right here? It looks different than in knitting. This is the granny stitch. The same raglan construction, but instead of casting on in the round, you cast on and then you knit back and forth for quite some rows. And you create raglan stitches and you increase at some spots. Obviously at the raglan spots, but also for the neckline, and at some point you just cast on a lot of extra stitches and then you close and then you start working in the round, and that creates the perfect neckline for me. So I was really happy with this, and I thought I need this in a knitting pattern, but I couldn't find it, and my brain doesn't work the way that I could create it myself. I get an error. I know it is not hard, but I can't think of how I must do it. There is an error, and I don't know if I really cannot do it or it's the fear of trying. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't work. So I really have a lot of respect for all the designers with all the constructions. But last year I found a pattern from Wool and Pine, a DK weight raglan with a scoop neckline. That was the first time I think I learned it called scoop neckline, with a lace panel in the front. And although I loved the lace panel too, I bought the pattern for the construction. I thought, oh, this will learn me how I can create a raglan construction with a scoop neckline. But I never knitted it. Again, so much not happening in my knitting life. But at the end of 2024 or the beginning of 2025, I don't remember exactly, Wool and Pine brought out. They came up with a new pattern, the Light Bright. And the Light Bright pattern was a pattern, I don't know where my pattern page is. I will insert a picture. It was again a raglan with a scoop neckline, and it was it gave you the option to fade with all your scrappy yarns. Wool and Pine, they have a lot of scrappy patterns, and they explain you how you can fade one color into another if you don't want a stripy garment, but you do want to use up some scraps. And although I love that idea, I thought I want that pattern for the construction. So I bought it, and the moment I saw it, and I have knit one. Not scrappy, as you can see, but a little bit different. This is the first time I'm wearing it. I finished it last Thursday, and I wanted to wear it yesterday, but it was way too warm. We had quite some springy weather days. But today it is still warm. I can feel it. It's a warm sweater, but I can handle it. So I'm really curious how it will wear, because I have some doubts about some spots. But I think I'm really happy with it. My biggest doubt, now let me start with the construction. I know how it works right now, and indeed it's not hard at all. It's quite easy. You cast on stitches, you knit back and forth for quite some rows, increasing at some spots, and at some point you add a lot of stitches and you close the knitting and you start knitting in the round. The only big difference with starting in the round immediately is that you have to pick up stitches for your neckband later, and you have to knit the neckband later, because you can't knit it because it's not complete yet. So I really love that right now, and I really love that I know it right now, and I can play with making these kinds of garments. And I did play with this one, and I am quite happy about it, I guess. There are some choices I have my doubts about, and the main choice is the main color yarn. I knitted it in Fiala Lopi. That's a new yarn weight from Istex. It's Icelandic yarn, very rustic. I love the yarn from Istex. I did work with Einband, that's the light fingering weight. I do work a lot with Let Lopi, that's the worsted weight, and I also have a cardigan in Alafos Lopi. Those are the only ones. I knitted a garment once in Kampgarn from Istex, but I don't like that. It's pilling a lot. It's feeling very lovely, but it's soft merino and it's pilling like crazy. I'm sorry. So when this came out, I thought it was a DK weight yarn, and you need DK weight yarn for this pattern. I still feel something in my throat. Maybe I swallowed a little bit of yarn. I will try to cut this out. Okay, so I thought this was a DK weight yarn, but it's not. It's more a sport weight yarn. It's 50 gram, 150 meters. And I only discovered, I didn't swatch because I'm not a swatcher. And I was knitting and I thought it's quite loose. And when I when I add the yarn to my Ravelry notes, it came up that it was a sport weight. And I thought, oh, I knitted it with a needle as if it was a DK weight, without swatching, of course. It's my own risk, I know. I love knitting on the edge. I've not such an exciting life, so I have to create my own excitement. Don't swatch. So I was a little bit worried about the stitch definition, because as I said, I'm not a very neat knitter and the stitches were dancing. Also, it's not a very straight thread. It is. I don't know. I know there are technical ways of explaining that. I don't have that knowledge, so I won't try. Yeah, I was not very happy with the fabric. But I read one of your comments, someone was telling me that it was really getting better if you wear it for a few times. And I also heard other people telling about their garments. They were very happy with it. So I thought, okay, let's give it a try. And I just knitted on and on and on. I wanted to add some color work, and it was quite a yeah, I need to think, where do you start with color work if you only want the body? And I tried my Kerr sweater from Rebecca Clow too, and it was on the middle of my breast. And apparently I didn't knit a few rounds after that, because this is not the middle, but I started there. And for the color work inspiration, I used a lovely book I definitely want to show you. It is this book, Selbu Patterns. Selbu, I think you say Selbu. It's from Anne Bertsgaard. I don't know how to pronounce. And it's filled with a lot of history about Norwegian knitting tradition and all the charts, over 400 charts and all the designs for socks, hats and sweaters. And I had seen this book in an American podcast, but I don't know which one, a few years ago, and also in a Dutch one. And then I get it as a present during the holidays a few years ago, and I am so impressed by all the things which are in the book. It is, this picture, I love this picture. There is a lot of information about the knitting history and a lot of charts, and also the garments they knitted with, all the socks and all the cardigans and all the sweaters. It's really, really lovely. Let's see if I can find the sweater too. All the old pictures and the charts, and yeah, a lot of information. Very interesting. And every time I watch this book, I look through all the pages, I feel so much inspiration and color work need, but I never used it for any pattern. So now I wanted to do it, and because there are so many things, I was quite overwhelmed. Where to start? Which to choose? They are all so lovely. And I decided that I wanted to keep it easy, because I was just discovering the fit of the sweater, and I found a very easy stitch pattern at the bottom of one of the pages, this one. And I had quite some fun, because in my mind it would be this size. So I thought I can make the body completely filled with this easy peasy stitch pattern, and yeah, it would be lovely. And then I made my own knitting chart, because this was so tiny. I should have known by then, but this was so tiny I couldn't see. And also I want to know the stitch pattern, so I printed some knitting paper, and I made the stitch pattern. It is an 8 stitch repeat colorwork chart, and I thought, whoa, this is much bigger than in my book, and still no alarms were going. So I thought, okay, it's a different scale, I get it. And then I started knitting, and when I was halfway, I thought, this is big, this is huge. I really had in mind that my stitch pattern on my sweater would be this size. So I could make my whole body filled with those rows of this chart, and I was completely wrong, because it was much bigger. So yeah, it made me laugh. I am a mistake maker. I make mistakes all the time. And yeah, I think it's good to have fun about your own mistakes. I learn from my mistakes. I need mistakes in my life to learn. When I do not make mistakes, I don't learn. So yeah, it's better to have fun about your own mistakes. So I decided one chart repeat is enough, because otherwise it will be too big, and I wanted to keep this sweater short. So that was my first thing. I did choose sport weight yarns to combine it with, because this was a sport weight, I did know. This is a leftover from, this is a full skein from Järbo. It is, how do you say it in English? Tuul? No, that's Swedish. Now you can read it, so I don't have to pronounce it. And I combined it with Holst Coast held double. There's my one and this one. I love the color, and the thickness was okay, so it combined very well, and I really love the look of it. Let me see. Oh yeah, the ribbing. I was thinking in the beginning, when I was not at the color work, I was doubting about adding the tulip ribbing from Melody Hoffman, the scalloped ribbing. I really love that. That's also a pattern living in my library for ages, never knitted. So I thought, shall I make a very plain basic brown garment with that scalloped edge, or shall I do color work? And then I decided I can do both. It's my own sweater. Maybe it's a little bit too much, but I can do it. But when I was knitting the scalloped ribbing in this yarn, I really didn't like it. It was too messy. When I would have a thicker DK weight, or maybe this Fiala Lopi combined with some mohair. I'm not very mohairy, but since I finished the Bubblicious for my youngest, I feel the need to try it for myself once too. So maybe that will work, but I didn't like it in this yarn. So I just did a knit 1, purl 1. I prefer knit 2, purl 2, but I already knitted the neckband, so I don't like it when there are several ribbings in the same garment, in one garment. So yeah, I'm really loving how it is right now. I made it very cropped. I love it when my sweaters are cropped on a dress, and sometimes it doesn't really work to make it work on all garments, so sometimes it's good to choose, I want it only on a dress. I think it's too short to wear on a skirt, or maybe a high-waisted will work. I didn't try. So I think I love it. The only thing is the neckband is quite wide. So now I finally have my low neckline and I'm complaining about the width. But I think I picked up too many stitches. So I can fix that quite easily by ripping out the ribbing and picking up stitches again, and then less than I have now. But that's... I think you will recognize it when you finish the garment. Your focus is not on the garment. You don't want your focus on the garment. You only want to wear it and the pleasure of wearing it. You focus also on your new projects, and then redoing something, oh, it asks for a lot of willpower. So I don't know if it's bothering me enough. Quite often a small change can make a garment from to whoo. But the effort to make the change is quite hard to find. So I don't know if I will do it. I did use a lot of different needles for this garment. I knitted my ribbing with 2.25, the stockinette with 3.5 millimeter, the color work with 4 millimeter, the sleeves with 4 millimeter, the color work for the sleeves with 4.5. And when I was knitting, I'm a magic loop knitter, so when I was knitting the sleeve magic loop, knitting sleeves magic loop color work is not really nice. And in the same time, one of my knitting friends was talking about knitting sleeves on shorties, and I have very mixed feelings about shorties. I have 2 sets, but I don't really love them. But every time someone is talking about shorties, I feel a little sparkle inside, so I think it resonates with me. I thought I decided I'm a magic loop knitter, but apparently we are not there yet. And I must confess, I didn't try hard enough. When you learn a new thing, you really need some practice to make those new connections in your brain. So there is a connection between your hands and your head, how it works. There is no connection in my brain yet. So it feels so uncomfortable knitting with those. But I did try, and I must say it was actually quite good, especially because I could use my 8 millimeter needle points for those. There is a little bit, I only tried, no, that's not true. I think my last experience with shorties is with socks, and that's a smaller circumference, so I couldn't use my 8 millimeter on both sides, and this knitted really good. So the rest of the sleeve I also finished with this, with the shorties. And then I decided I need to practice it more, so I casted on a shorty sock. Yeah, I am challenging myself by practicing knitting on shorties, and this time I have the shortest needle points and the shortest cable, so it's really, my hands are really confused. What do you want? How do we need to hold this? And I casted on yesterday, and of course the toe I did magic loop, but from here I did on the shorties, so that's quite a lot. It's not looking good. It's on a very loose gauge and it's messy. And I actually wanted to knit a ribbed sock, but no way I am ready for knitting ribbing on the shorties yet. So I'm just knitting it around, and maybe I will frog the sock. It is a Dutch yarn brand, Scheepjes, Arcadia. I never worked with this yarn, but I love the colors. And I'm just knitting, I'm just practicing. It's no physical gym. Oh, it is physical actually. You have mind gym, you can go to the gym, and you have knitting gym. I'm doing knitting gym. My hands are trained. Oh, I'm knitting continental. My hands are trained, and it is quite interesting. At some points I am really getting in the flow and I'm really feeling the rhythm and it's really going nice and easy, but it's only for 10 stitches or something, and then my hands get confused again. So I pick it up and knit every time a few rounds, and then when I feel that cramp in my hands, I put it away and I try it later. It's going quite well already. Only 1 day of practice, and I must confess, quite often I go back. Now I try the new technique for one moment and then I think, oh no, I don't like it. Let's go back to how I already know. And that's quite logical, but sometimes when you give it a good try, the new technique can be better than what you already know. But because what you already know is so familiar, you want to stay there. And there's nothing wrong with that, but every time someone's talking about shorties, I feel the sparkle. And I think when you feel the sparkle, you need to practice. When you don't feel the sparkle, then you are absolutely okay where you are. But if you feel the sparkle, then that's a sign that maybe the new way is better for you, but you need to practice and optimize it before you can decide which way you prefer. And maybe you don't prefer any way, but you can use both ways. So knitting gym is happening. I will keep you updated. Okay, I have one more thing to show you, the last thing, and that's was I already finished with the sweater? I think it is. The only thing I need to say, I don't told you that, I guess, because the light, the gauge and the light, it's a very lightweight sweater, and it's really, it doesn't weigh a lot, 221 grams, that's not a lot. And it's, of course, it's a very cropped sweater, but still. And it's really a thin but very warm woolly layer, and I really love that. So yeah, I think I'm only wearing it once. Will there be some halo? I would love that. I will share my opinion about the sweater within a few weeks, I guess, after some wearing, but it's feeling really nice and comfortable. So yeah, I have my doubts about the Fiala Lopi, but I can imagine that it will be a positive opinion in the end. I saw another sweater made by a Dutch knitter, and she knitted on a tighter gauge, and I was allowed to fit the sweater, and that was looking so much better than mine. So yeah, I think it might be good in the end. So I will share it when I know. I received a lovely yarn skein from a Dutch yarn shop. From Antonita. She has the yarn shop Wol Uit Het Zuiden, which means wool from the south, and she sells yarn from Spain and Portugal. She has Spanish roots, or Portuguese, or both. She lived in one of the countries and her father was from one of the countries, but I don't know which one. And she asked me, she wanted to add a new yarn to her web shop, and she asked me if I want to choose a color, and she wanted to give it to me, so that's very generous. Thank you, Antonita. This is, she works with all the good yarns. She really wants to have it local and created under good circumstances. And this is Soc Una Troca, yarns to make you happy, and it is 100% merino, non-superwash, 100 gram, 400 meters, and it's in the colorway Cappuccino. It was very hard to choose a lovely color because there were so many lovely colors. I tried to go a little bit out of my comfort zone. It's still brown. Yeah, really lovely. I really love it. I'm not sure what to make from it. You can make socks with it. There is no other yarn added, but on the website I read you can knit socks with it, but I don't think I want that. I think I want to make a summer garment. Last year I made from a pattern from Jacqueline Cieslak, I think it was the Sporty Tank. I could knit a sporty tank with one skein in my size without having any yarn left. It was quite close, so maybe I will make another sporty tank with this yarn. I don't know. For now I will enjoy this lovely skein. Okay, this was it for today. I will enjoy my knitting and crochet projects. I still have a crochet project too on my needles. I am ignoring those a little bit. I will give them some attention. I will cast on all the things, and in the meantime I also finish things. So I think we are in balance. I'm really having fun. I casted on a new garment for my little niece, and a pair of socks, a new Hobbiton vest. I will show you next week. This episode is already way too long. I want to thank you for watching. A very good week. I hope you have a very good week filled with a lot of heart jumping moments, and if you can't find them, create them, because we need them. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.